Question 1. Examination of the data shows that an admissions officer at the American University in Bulgaria has a close personal relationship with an applicant. The admissions officer is responsible for reviewing application materials and making initial recommendations for admission. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions officer to ensure the integrity of the admissions process? Option A. Proceed with evaluating the applicant's application as usual, assuming their professional judgment will prevent personal bias from influencing the outcome. Option B. Disclose the personal relationship to the admissions committee and recuse themselves from any involvement in the applicant's evaluation and decision-making process. Option C. Discreetly advocate for the applicant to other members of the admissions committee, highlighting their strengths without explicitly mentioning the personal relationship. Option D. Ignore the personal relationship and hope that it does not impact the admissions decision, continuing with their standard review process. Correct answer is B. Disclose the personal relationship to the admissions committee and recuse themselves from any involvement in the applicant's evaluation and decision-making process. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to navigate potential conflicts of interest and ensure the integrity of an academic admissions process. The core of the challenge lies in balancing personal relationships with professional responsibilities and adhering to the established policies of the American University in Bulgaria. OB. Maintaining fairness and objectivity is paramount in admissions to uphold the university's reputation and ensure that all applicants are evaluated on their merits. The correct approach involves a transparent disclosure of the personal relationship to the admissions committee and recusal from any decision-making process concerning the applicant. This aligns with ethical principles of avoiding conflicts of interest and maintaining impartiality. Specifically, OBG internal guidelines and general principles of academic integrity would mandate such a disclosure and recusal to prevent any perception of favoritism or bias. This ensures that the applicant is evaluated by individuals who can make an objective assessment, thereby upholding the fairness of the admissions process. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with evaluating the applicant without disclosing the relationship. This failure constitutes a breach of ethical conduct by not declaring a potential conflict of interest. It undermines the principle of fairness and could lead to accusations of bias, damaging both the individual's professional standing and the university's reputation. Another incorrect approach would be to attempt to influence the admissions committee's decision in favor of the applicant, even after disclosure. This directly violates the duty of impartiality and professional integrity. It transforms a potential conflict of interest into an active attempt to manipulate the process, which is ethically reprehensible and likely against all explicit policies on admissions and professional conduct. Finally, an incorrect approach would be to ignore the situation and hope that the personal relationship does not influence the decision. This passive approach is still a failure to act responsibly. It neglects the obligation to proactively manage potential conflicts of interest and leaves the situation open to unconscious bias, which can be as damaging as overt favoritism. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of university policies regarding conflicts of interest and admissions. When a potential conflict arises, the first step is to identify it. The next step is to consult relevant policies and ethical guidelines. If a conflict is confirmed, the professional must then take appropriate action, which typically involves disclosure and recusal from any decision-making capacity related to the matter. Transparency and adherence to established procedures are key to maintaining professional integrity. Question 2. Assessment of the most appropriate procedure for the admissions committee of the American University in Bulgaria when reviewing an applicant whose academic record shows a strong performance across most subjects, but a significantly lower grade in one specific course, and who expresses a strong desire to attend the university. Option A. Conduct a comprehensive review of the applicant's entire academic transcript, considering any provided explanations for the lower grade, and evaluate their overall academic potential and suitability for the university's programs. Option B. Prioritize the applicant's extracurricular activities and leadership experience over the academic record, assuming these qualities compensate for the lower grade. Option C. Grant the applicant admission based on their expressed enthusiasm and the fact that they are applying to the American University in Bulgaria, overriding the academic discrepancy. Option D. Immediately reject the applicant due to the single low grade, as it indicates a potential lack of consistent academic ability. Correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive review of the applicant's entire academic transcript, considering any provided explanations for the lower grade, and evaluate their overall academic potential and suitability for the university's programs. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The admissions committee must exercise careful judgment to uphold these principles while considering individual circumstances. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective review of the applicant's entire academic record, including any extenuating circumstances that may have impacted their performance. This approach aligns with the American University in Bulgaria's commitment to admitting students who demonstrate both academic potential and a commitment to ethical conduct. Specifically, it adheres to the university's stated admissions policies, which typically emphasize a holistic review process that considers academic achievement, personal qualities, and potential for success. This approach is ethically sound as it treats all applicants fairly and consistently, based on established criteria, while also allowing for a nuanced understanding of individual situations. An incorrect approach would be to immediately dismiss the applicant based solely on the lower grade in a single course without further investigation. This fails to acknowledge that a single grade may not be representative of the applicant's overall academic capability or potential. It also neglects the university's ethical obligation to provide a fair and equitable admissions process, which includes considering all relevant information. Another incorrect approach would be to grant the applicant special consideration or an exception to the standard admissions criteria solely based on their stated ambition or the fact that they are applying to the American University in Bulgaria. This would undermine the integrity of the admissions process and could lead to the admission of students who may not be adequately prepared for the rigorous academic environment, potentially compromising the university's academic standards. It also raises ethical concerns about fairness to other applicants who meet the standard criteria without special exceptions. A further incorrect approach would be to focus exclusively on the applicant's extracurricular achievements or leadership roles as a primary justification for overlooking the academic discrepancy. While these factors are important in a holistic review, they should not entirely supersede the fundamental requirement of academic preparedness, which is assessed through grades and academic performance. This approach risks devaluing academic rigor and could lead to admitting students who lack the foundational knowledge necessary for success. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured review process that 1. Clearly defines the admissions criteria and the weight given to different components of the application. 2. Establishes a protocol for evaluating extenuating circumstances, ensuring consistency and fairness. 3. Involves a committee or multiple reviewers to mitigate individual bias. And 4. Prioritizes academic integrity and the university's mission in all admissions decisions. Question 3. Which approach would be most appropriate for an applicant to the American University in Bulgaria who has previously been found responsible for a minor academic integrity violation at a previous educational institution and is completing their university entrance application? Option A. Omit any mention of the academic integrity violation, assuming it is minor and unlikely to be discovered. Option B. Fully disclose the academic integrity violation, providing a brief, factual explanation of the circumstances and any lessons learned. Option C. Focus solely on academic achievements and extracurricular activities, hoping the violation will be overlooked. Option D. Downplay the severity of the violation, describing it as a misunderstanding rather than a breach of academic integrity. Correct answer is B. Fully disclose the academic integrity violation, providing a brief, factual explanation of the circumstances and any lessons learned. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of academic integrity and ethical conduct, which are foundational principles at any university, including the American University in Bulgaria, (OBG). The entrance exam is designed to assess not only academic potential, but also the applicant's commitment to honesty and fairness in their academic pursuits. Misrepresenting information, even if seemingly minor, can have significant consequences for an applicant's admission and future academic standing. Careful judgment is required to ensure all provided information is accurate and truthful. The correct approach involves providing a complete and truthful account of all academic experiences, including any instances where academic standards were not met or where disciplinary action was taken. This approach aligns with the OB commitment to academic integrity and its expectation that all students will uphold these standards. By being transparent, the applicant demonstrates maturity, honesty, and a willingness to take responsibility for their actions, which are qualities valued by the university. This proactive disclosure allows the admissions committee to make a fully informed decision based on accurate information, fostering trust and a fair evaluation process. An incorrect approach would be to omit or downplay any academic misconduct or disciplinary issues. This failure to disclose is a direct violation of the principle of honesty and can be considered academic dishonesty in itself. Universities rely on applicants to be truthful in their applications. Concealing relevant information undermines the integrity of the admissions process and erodes trust between the applicant and the institution. Such omissions, if discovered, can lead to the rescission of an offer of admission or even expulsion if discovered after enrollment. Another incorrect approach is to provide misleading or fabricated information. This is a more severe form of dishonesty and directly contravenes the ethical standards expected of all members of the academic community. It demonstrates a lack of integrity and a willingness to deceive, which are antithetical to the values of higher education. This approach not only jeopardizes the applicant's chances of admission, but also reflects poorly on their character and suitability for academic study. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves prioritizing honesty and transparency above all else. Applicants should carefully review all application requirements and prompts, ensuring they understand what information is being requested. They should then gather all relevant documentation and information, verifying its accuracy. If there are any doubts about what to disclose or how to present sensitive information, it is always best to err on the side of caution and provide a complete, truthful account, perhaps with a brief, factual explanation. This proactive and honest approach builds a foundation of trust and demonstrates the applicant's commitment to ethical conduct, which is crucial for success in academic and professional life. Question 4. Implementation of a student's responsibility during an OBG entrance exam when they discover a small, folded piece of paper containing what appear to be unauthorized notes in their exam booklet after the exam has commenced, requires a decision on the most appropriate course of action to uphold academic integrity. Option A. Consult the notes briefly to see if they are relevant to any questions, then dispose of them before the exam ends. Option B. Immediately and discreetly inform the exam proctor of the discovery and await their instructions. Option C. Discreetly attempt to conceal or dispose of the notes without alerting the proctor. Option D. Continue with the exam as if the notes were not discovered and address the issue only if questioned later. The correct answer is B. Immediately and discreetly inform the exam proctor of the discovery and await their instructions. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to academic integrity and the ethical responsibilities of students within the American University in Bulgaria OBG framework. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need to uphold academic standards with the potential for misunderstandings or unintentional breaches of policy. OBG entrance exam regulations, while not explicitly detailed here, are understood to emphasize honesty, originality, and adherence to stated instructions. Therefore, a student's actions must be evaluated against these implicit and explicit expectations. The correct approach involves immediate and transparent communication with the exam proctor regarding the discovery of the unauthorized material. This demonstrates a commitment to academic integrity by proactively addressing a potential violation. By informing the proctor, the student signals an intent to comply with exam rules and seeks guidance on how to proceed ethically. This aligns with the general principles of academic honesty expected at OBG, which prioritize transparency and the avoidance of any form of academic misconduct, including the possession of unauthorized aids. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the presence of the notes and proceed with the exam. This failure to report the unauthorized material constitutes a breach of academic integrity, as it allows for the potential, however unintentional, use of an unfair advantage. It also demonstrates a lack of proactive engagement with exam regulations and a disregard for the principles of honest assessment. Another incorrect approach would be to attempt to conceal or dispose of the notes without informing the proctor. This action suggests an intent to deceive or circumvent the rules, even if the notes were not ultimately used. Such behavior directly violates the spirit and letter of academic honesty policies, which require full disclosure and cooperation with exam supervisors. Finally, an incorrect approach would be to continue the exam and only report the incident after its completion, especially if the notes were consulted. This delayed reporting can be viewed as an attempt to benefit from the unauthorized material before admitting to its possession, undermining the credibility of the student's claim of unintentionality and raising questions about their commitment to academic integrity. The professional decision-making process in such a situation should involve a clear understanding of the university's academic integrity policies, a commitment to honesty and transparency, and the courage to act ethically even when it might be inconvenient. When faced with a potential violation, the immediate and direct communication with the authority figure, the proctor, is paramount. This ensures that any ambiguity is resolved according to established procedures and upholds the integrity of the examination process. Question 5. Market research demonstrates that American University in Bulgaria, OBGE, faces increasing competition for qualified international students. An admissions officer, who also serves as a mentor in a local youth leadership program, has a close personal relationship with a talented prospective student who is applying to OBGE. The admissions officer is aware of the student's strong academic profile, but also knows they have a few minor disciplinary infractions from their high school years that are not severe, but could be a point of discussion during the admissions review. The admissions officer is tempted to highlight the student's strengths and downplay the infractions to their colleagues in the admissions committee to ensure their admission. Which of the following represents the most ethically sound and professionally responsible approach for the admissions officer? Option A. Advocate strongly for the applicant's admission, emphasizing their strengths and subtly minimizing the significance of the disciplinary infractions to the admissions committee. Option B. Share insights about the applicant's character and potential with admissions committee members informally, without explicitly mentioning the personal relationship or the disciplinary issues. Option C. Proceed with the standard admissions review process, assuming their personal relationship will not influence their professional judgment or that of their colleagues. Option D. Disclose the personal relationship to the admissions committee and recuse themselves from any discussion or decision-making regarding the applicant's admission. The correct answer is D. Disclose the personal relationship to the admissions committee and recuse themselves from any discussion or decision-making regarding the applicant's admission. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to navigate potential conflicts of interest and uphold ethical standards in a competitive academic environment. The pressure to secure enrollment for the university, coupled with the personal relationship with a prospective student, necessitates careful judgment to ensure that decisions are made impartially and in accordance with the American University in Bulgaria's admissions policies and ethical guidelines. The correct approach involves prioritizing transparency and adherence to established admissions procedures. This means disclosing the personal relationship to the admissions committee and recusing oneself from any decision-making process concerning the applicant. This approach is ethically sound and aligns with best practices in academic admissions by preventing bias and ensuring fairness to all applicants. It upholds the integrity of the admissions process, which is paramount for maintaining the university's reputation and the trust of its stakeholders. The American University in Bulgaria, like any reputable institution, would expect its staff to act with integrity and avoid situations that could compromise the fairness of its admissions. An incorrect approach would be to advocate for the applicant's admission without disclosing the personal relationship. This failure constitutes a breach of ethical conduct by creating a conflict of interest and potentially influencing the admissions decision based on personal ties rather than merit. It undermines the principle of equal opportunity for all prospective students. Another incorrect approach would be to subtly influence admissions officers or provide preferential treatment to the applicant outside of formal channels. This behavior is unethical as it circumvents established procedures and introduces bias into the selection process. It erodes the credibility of the admissions department and the university as a whole. Finally, an incorrect approach would be to ignore the situation and hope it goes unnoticed. This passive stance is irresponsible and ethically deficient. It demonstrates a lack of commitment to upholding professional standards and a disregard for the potential consequences of a conflict of interest. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's conflict of interest policies and ethical codes. When a potential conflict arises, the professional should proactively identify it, disclose it to the appropriate authorities, in this case, the admissions committee or relevant supervisor, and recuse themselves from any decision-making capacity related to the matter. This ensures that decisions are made objectively and that the integrity of the institution is preserved. Question 6. During the evaluation of an applicant's file for the American University in Bulgaria entrance exam, it is noted that while the candidate meets the minimum requirements for standardized test scores and has a strong academic record, they have not participated in any extracurricular activities listed as mandatory in the admission guidelines. However, the applicant has provided compelling evidence of significant community service and leadership roles in a non-academic capacity that demonstrate initiative and commitment. Which of the following approaches best reflects a professional and ethically sound admissions decision-making process for all? Option A. Overlook the missing extracurricular activities and admit the applicant solely based on their academic scores and test results, without considering other aspects of their profile. Option B. Reject the applicant outright due to the failure to meet the mandatory extracurricular activity requirement, as per the strict interpretation of the guidelines. Option C. Admit the applicant, prioritizing their demonstrated leadership and community service as strong compensating factors for the lack of listed extracurricular activities, aligning with the spirit of identifying well-rounded individuals. Option D. Request the applicant to immediately engage in a listed extracurricular activity before a final decision can be made, regardless of their existing commitments and demonstrated potential. The correct answer is B. Reject the applicant outright due to the failure to meet the mandatory extracurricular activity requirement, as per the strict interpretation of the guidelines. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in academic admissions, balancing the university's stated criteria with the desire to admit promising candidates who may not perfectly fit every box. The American University in Bulgaria, AUB, entrance exam, like any university admissions process, operates under a framework of established regulations and guidelines designed to ensure fairness, transparency, and meritocracy. The challenge lies in interpreting these guidelines when faced with exceptional circumstances or candidates who demonstrate potential beyond traditional metrics. A rigid adherence to every single criterion without considering the spirit of the guidelines can lead to overlooking valuable talent, while an overly flexible approach risks undermining the integrity and fairness of the admissions process. Therefore, careful judgment, informed by the university's overarching mission and specific admission policies, is crucial. The correct approach involves a holistic review that prioritizes the university's core admission principles, while allowing for reasoned exceptions based on documented evidence of potential and suitability. This means acknowledging the importance of all stated requirements, but recognizing that certain aspects might be demonstrably compensated for by other strengths. For instance, if a candidate excels in areas directly relevant to AUB academic programs and demonstrates exceptional leadership or extracurricular achievements that align with the university's values, a minor deviation in a less critical area might be justifiable. This approach is ethically sound as it aims for fairness by considering the full profile of the applicant and aligns with best practices in admissions, which often advocate for a balanced assessment rather than a purely checklist-driven one. It upholds the spirit of the AUB admission guidelines by seeking to identify students who will thrive and contribute to the university community. An incorrect approach would be to strictly adhere to every single stated requirement, without any consideration for context or compensating factors. This fails to acknowledge that admissions guidelines are often designed to be comprehensive, but not necessarily absolute in every instance. It can lead to the rejection of highly qualified candidates who possess significant potential, but have a minor deficiency in one specific area, thereby failing to serve the university's interest in attracting diverse and talented individuals. Another incorrect approach would be to disregard stated requirements entirely based on subjective impressions or personal biases. This undermines the transparency and fairness of the admissions process, potentially leading to accusations of favoritism and compromising the integrity of the AUB academic standards. Such an approach violates the ethical obligation to treat all applicants equitably and according to established procedures. A professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a thorough review of the applicant's entire file, cross-referencing their strengths and weaknesses against the stated admission criteria and the university's mission. When a deviation from a specific requirement is considered, the decision-making committee should seek to understand the reasons for the deviation and assess whether the applicant's other qualifications provide sufficient evidence of their ability to succeed at all. This often involves seeking additional information or clarification from the applicant or their referees. The final decision should be well documented, clearly articulating the rationale behind any exception made, ensuring accountability and transparency. Question 7. Stakeholder feedback indicates a concern regarding the authenticity of certain academic achievements and extracurricular activities listed on a prospective student's application for the American University in Bulgaria. The admissions committee must decide how to proceed with evaluating this application. Option A. Accept the application as submitted, prioritizing meeting enrollment targets over addressing the potential discrepancies. Option B. Conduct a thorough verification process for all questionable claims, requesting supplementary documentation and potentially conducting an interview while maintaining confidentiality. Option C. Forward the stakeholder feedback directly to the applicant's current institution for their assessment and recommendation without further internal review. Option D. Immediately reject the application based on the initial concerns raised by the stakeholder feedback, assuming the information is inaccurate. The correct answer is B. Conduct a thorough verification process for all questionable claims, requesting supplementary documentation and potentially conducting an interview while maintaining confidentiality. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in balancing institutional reputation, academic integrity, and the ethical obligations of admissions personnel. The university, like any educational institution, is expected to uphold rigorous standards in its admissions process to ensure the quality of its student body and maintain public trust. The challenge lies in discerning genuine academic merit from potentially misleading or fabricated credentials, especially when faced with external pressure or the desire to meet enrollment targets. Careful judgment is required to avoid both the admission of unqualified candidates and the unfair rejection of deserving ones. The correct approach involves a thorough, objective, and evidence-based review of all application materials, with a particular focus on verifying the authenticity and accuracy of submitted academic records and extracurricular achievements. This approach aligns with the principles of fairness, transparency, and academic integrity that are fundamental to university admissions. Specifically, it adheres to the implicit regulatory framework governing educational institutions, which mandates due diligence in assessing applicants and maintaining accurate records. Ethically, it upholds the professional responsibility to act in the best interest of the institution and its academic mission, ensuring that admissions decisions are based on merit and not on external influence or incomplete information. An incorrect approach would be to immediately dismiss the application based on a single piece of potentially questionable information without further investigation. This fails to uphold the principle of due process for the applicant and risks overlooking genuine qualifications. It also violates the ethical obligation to conduct a fair and comprehensive review. Another incorrect approach would be to accept the application at face value, disregarding the stakeholder feedback and the potential for misrepresentation. This compromises academic standards and the university's reputation, potentially leading to the admission of students who are not adequately prepared for the academic rigor of the institution. This also represents a failure in due diligence and a breach of ethical responsibility to maintain the integrity of the admissions process. A third incorrect approach would be to seek external validation or confirmation from the applicant's current institution without a clear, established protocol for such inquiries, potentially violating privacy or creating an undue burden on the other institution. This lacks a systematic and objective basis for decision-making. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, acknowledge and document all feedback received. Second, establish clear criteria for evaluating the credibility of information. Third, conduct a systematic review of the application, prioritizing objective evidence. Fourth, if discrepancies or concerns arise, implement a defined protocol for verification, which may include requesting additional documentation or conducting interviews while respecting applicant privacy. Finally, base the decision on the totality of the evidence, ensuring it is fair, consistent, and defensible. Question 8. Performance analysis shows that a student in their first year at the American University in Bulgaria has achieved a cumulative GPA that is below the university's stated minimum for satisfactory academic progress, but has demonstrated significant improvement in their grades during the most recent semester and actively participated in academic support workshops. What is the most appropriate next step for the academic advising team? Option A. Schedule a meeting with the student to inform them that they are at risk of academic dismissal without exploring contributing factors or potential solutions. Option B. Advise the student that their performance is unsatisfactory and suggest they consider alternative academic paths. Option C. Recommend a comprehensive academic review that includes an assessment of the student's overall academic record, engagement, and potential for improvement, followed by a personalized support plan. Option D. Immediately place the student on academic probation, based solely on their cumulative GPA. The correct answer is C. Recommend a comprehensive academic review that includes an assessment of the student's overall academic record, engagement, and potential for improvement, followed by a personalized support plan. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in academic settings where a student's performance, while meeting minimum requirements, raises concerns about their preparedness for advanced studies. The professional challenge lies in balancing the university's commitment to academic standards with its responsibility to support student success and provide fair evaluation. The decision requires careful judgment to avoid both undue leniency that could compromise academic integrity and excessive strictness that might unfairly penalize a student. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review of the student's academic record, considering not just the final grade, but also the context of their performance, engagement in coursework, and potential for improvement. This approach aligns with the American University in Bulgaria's commitment to holistic student development and academic rigor. It allows for an informed decision based on a full understanding of the student's situation, potentially leading to supportive interventions rather than outright rejection. This aligns with the spirit of academic guidance and the university's mission to foster learning, an approach that focuses solely on the numerical grade without considering other factors, fails to acknowledge the nuances of academic performance and the university's role in student support. This rigid adherence to a single metric can be ethically problematic as it may overlook extenuating circumstances or a student's demonstrated growth. Another incorrect approach would be to immediately recommend academic probation without further investigation. This prematurely labels the student and may not address the root cause of their performance issues. It bypasses the opportunity for a more constructive dialogue and tailored support plan. Finally, an approach that dismisses the student's performance as simply not good enough, without exploring reasons or potential solutions, is dismissive and unprofessional. It neglects the university's responsibility to guide students and help them overcome academic challenges. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Gathering all relevant information. This includes grades, attendance, participation, and any feedback provided by instructors. 2. Identifying potential contributing factors. Consider if there were any personal, academic, or external issues that might have affected performance. 3. Evaluating the student's potential for improvement. Assess their engagement, effort, and willingness to seek help. 4. Consulting relevant university policies and guidelines. Ensure the decision aligns with established academic regulations. 5. Engaging in a constructive dialogue with the student. Understand their perspective and discuss potential support mechanisms. 6. Making a well-reasoned decision. Based on the gathered information and university policies, determine the most appropriate course of action, which may include additional support, a revised academic plan, or, in some cases, a more formal academic warning. Question 9. Quality control measures reveal that during the preparation for the American University in Bulgaria entrance exam, one applicant observed another applicant sharing answers to a practice essay question via a messaging application. The applicant who observed this is now completing their own application and is considering how to proceed. Which of the following represents the most professionally responsible and ethically sound approach? Option A. Confront the applicant who was sharing answers directly to express disapproval. Option B. Ignore the observation as it occurred during a practice session and not during the actual entrance exam. Option C. Report the observed sharing of answers to the OBG admissions office, providing any details available. Option D. Share the observation with other applicants to raise awareness about academic integrity. The correct answer is C. Report the observed sharing of answers to the OBG admissions office, providing any details available. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the core principles of academic integrity and the specific regulations governing admissions at the American University in Bulgaria. OBG. The challenge lies in identifying the most appropriate and ethically sound response when faced with potential academic misconduct by a peer during the application process. OBG, like any reputable academic institution, has a vested interest in upholding the integrity of its admissions process and ensuring that all admitted students adhere to its academic standards. Therefore, the correct approach must align with these institutional values and the implied ethical obligations of applicants. The correct approach involves directly addressing the observed misconduct through the established channels within the OBG admissions framework. This demonstrates a commitment to academic honesty and a willingness to uphold the university's standards. Specifically, reporting the observed plagiarism to the admissions committee or designated OBG authority is the most appropriate action. This aligns with the ethical obligation to prevent academic dishonesty and ensures that the admissions committee can make informed decisions based on accurate information. OBG regulations, as implied by the nature of an entrance exam, would undoubtedly prioritize academic integrity and provide mechanisms for addressing such issues. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the observed plagiarism. This inaction tacitly condones academic dishonesty and fails to uphold the principles of fairness and integrity that are fundamental to any academic institution. It also deprives the admissions committee of crucial information that could impact the evaluation of other applicants and the overall integrity of the applicant pool. Another incorrect approach would be to confront the applicant directly without involving the university. While this might seem like a proactive measure, it bypasses the established procedures for handling academic misconduct. It could lead to unproductive confrontations, misinterpretations, or even accusations of harassment, and it does not guarantee that the issue will be addressed by the appropriate authorities. Furthermore, it places the responsibility of enforcement on the applicant, which is not their role. A third incorrect approach would be to anonymously report the misconduct. While anonymity might seem like a way to avoid direct confrontation, it can also undermine the credibility of the report and make it difficult for the admissions committee to investigate thoroughly. Most institutional reporting mechanisms prefer to have a point of contact, even if confidentiality is assured. This approach also fails to demonstrate the applicant's personal commitment to academic integrity by not taking ownership of the observation. The professional decision-making process in such a situation involves recognizing the ethical implications of academic misconduct, understanding the importance of institutional integrity, and acting in accordance with established procedures. Applicants should consider what action best serves the principles of fairness and honesty, and which action aligns with the expected conduct of members of the academic community. The primary goal is to ensure the integrity of the admissions process and uphold the values of the university. Question 10. The performance metrics show a slight dip in the applicant's grades during their final year of secondary education, but their overall application includes strong extracurricular involvement, compelling personal essays, and positive recommendations. The admissions committee is deliberating on whether to proceed with a conditional offer or a direct rejection. Which of the following represents the most professionally sound approach for the admissions committee? Option A. Issue a conditional offer of admission contingent solely on the applicant achieving a significantly higher score on a supplementary entrance examination. Option B. Immediately reject the applicant based on the recent decline in performance metrics, as this indicates a lack of sustained academic rigor. Option C. Conduct a thorough review of the applicant's entire application, including the qualitative aspects, to understand the context of the performance dip and assess their overall potential for success at OBG. Option D. Prioritize the applicant's acceptance due to their strong extracurricular involvement, assuming the grade dip is a minor anomaly that will not impact their university performance. The correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough review of the applicant's entire application, including the qualitative aspects, to understand the context of the performance dip and assess their overall potential for success at OG. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's stated commitment to academic integrity with the practical realities of student performance and potential external pressures. The admissions committee must make a judgment call that upholds the university's standards while also being fair and considering all relevant information. The core of the challenge lies in interpreting performance metrics beyond simple numerical scores, recognizing that a holistic view is necessary for ethical and effective admissions decisions. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the applicant's entire application, including qualitative factors, to understand the context behind the performance metrics. This means looking for evidence of growth, extenuating circumstances, and the applicant's potential to succeed at the American University in Bulgaria, OG, aligning with OG mission and values. This approach is ethically sound and professionally responsible as it adheres to principles of fairness, due diligence, and a commitment to admitting students who are a good fit for the institution, not just those with perfect scores. It respects the applicant as an individual and acknowledges that performance can be influenced by various factors. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the numerical performance metrics, disregarding other aspects of the application, fails to meet the professional standard of a holistic review. This can lead to the rejection of promising candidates who may have overcome significant obstacles or demonstrated exceptional potential in other areas. Ethically, this approach can be seen as overly rigid and potentially discriminatory if it doesn't account for diverse backgrounds and circumstances. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate acceptance based on a superficial interpretation of metrics, without deeper investigation, risks admitting students who may not be adequately prepared for the academic rigor of OG. This undermines the university's academic standards and can lead to higher attrition rates, which is detrimental to both the students and the institution. It demonstrates a lack of professional diligence and a failure to uphold the university's commitment to academic excellence. A further incorrect approach that involves seeking external validation or pressure to accept the applicant, rather than relying on the established admissions criteria and committee judgment, is a serious ethical breach. This compromises the integrity of the admissions process and can create an unfair advantage for certain applicants. It violates principles of impartiality and can lead to a perception of favoritism, damaging the reputation of the university. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a structured review of all application components, open discussion among committee members to consider diverse perspectives, and a clear understanding of OG admission philosophy and academic standards. The focus should always be on identifying candidates who demonstrate not only academic aptitude, but also the character, resilience, and motivation to thrive in the OG environment. Question 11. The performance metrics show a slight dip in a candidate's grades during their final year of secondary education, which is otherwise strong. The admissions committee is reviewing this application for the American University in Bulgaria. Which of the following approaches best reflects a fair and thorough evaluation process? Option A. Accept the candidate immediately based on their overall strong performance prior to the final year, assuming the dip was an anomaly. Option B. Automatically reject the candidate due to the decline in performance metrics, as this indicates a lack of sustained academic rigor. Option C. Consider the performance metrics in conjunction with the candidate's personal statement, letters of recommendation, and any provided explanations for the grade fluctuation to assess their overall potential and suitability for the university. Option D. Request additional standardized test scores to definitively confirm the candidate's academic ability, overriding the performance metrics. The correct answer is B. Automatically reject the candidate due to the decline in performance metrics, as this indicates a lack of sustained academic rigor. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's stated commitment to academic integrity with the practical realities of student performance and potential external pressures. The admissions committee must make a judgment that upholds the university's standards without being overly punitive or ignoring valid explanations for performance variations. Careful consideration of the context surrounding the performance metrics is crucial. The correct approach involves a holistic review of the applicant's profile, considering the performance metrics within the broader context of their application. This includes evaluating their personal statement, letters of recommendation, and any explanations provided for academic fluctuations. This approach aligns with the principles of fair and equitable assessment, which are fundamental to educational institutions. It acknowledges that academic performance can be influenced by various factors and allows for a nuanced understanding of an applicant's potential. This is ethically sound as it promotes fairness and avoids making decisions based on incomplete information. An approach that solely focuses on the performance metrics without considering mitigating circumstances would be ethically flawed. It fails to recognize that students may face challenges outside their control that temporarily impact their grades. This could lead to the rejection of otherwise promising candidates who have demonstrated resilience and potential for success at the university. Such an approach also risks being perceived as arbitrary and lacking in empathy, undermining the university's commitment to supporting its students. Another incorrect approach would be to automatically accept all applicants whose metrics fall within a certain range, regardless of other application components. This overlooks the importance of a well-rounded application and the potential for an applicant to be a good fit for the university's culture and academic environment beyond just their grades. It prioritizes a single data point over a comprehensive evaluation, which is not a best practice in admissions. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve establishing clear, transparent, and fair admissions criteria that are consistently applied. It requires training admissions officers to critically evaluate all aspects of an application, including qualitative data and contextual information. Professionals should be encouraged to seek clarification when necessary, and to engage in collaborative decision-making to ensure a balanced and informed outcome. The focus should always be on identifying candidates who demonstrate the potential to thrive academically and contribute positively to the university community, while upholding the institution's values. Question 12. The performance metrics show a significant disparity in standardized test scores between applicants from different secondary school systems. One approach is to heavily weigh these scores, assuming they are the most objective measure of academic readiness. Another approach is to adjust these scores based on the perceived academic rigor of the applicant's previous institution. A third approach is to consider these metrics as one factor among many, alongside essays, recommendations, and extracurricular activities in a holistic review process. A fourth approach is to disregard these metrics entirely and rely solely on interviews and personal statements, which approach best aligns with the principles of fair and effective university admissions at the American University in Bulgaria. Option A. Adjust these scores based on the perceived academic rigor of the applicant's previous institution. Option B. Heavily weigh these scores, assuming they are the most objective measure of academic readiness. Option C. Disregard these metrics entirely and rely solely on interviews and personal statements. Option D. Consider these metrics as one factor among many, alongside essays, recommendations, and extracurricular activities in a holistic review process. The correct answer is D. Consider these metrics as one factor among many, alongside essays, recommendations, and extracurricular activities in a holistic review process. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's strategic goals with the ethical obligations of admissions personnel. The admissions team must ensure that the selection process is fair, transparent, and adheres to the American University in Bulgaria's OB stated admission policies and any relevant Bulgarian educational regulations. Misinterpreting or misapplying performance metrics can lead to biased decisions, undermining the integrity of the admissions process and potentially violating principles of equal opportunity. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between genuine academic potential and metrics that might be influenced by external factors or not fully reflective of a candidate's suitability for OB academic environment. The correct approach involves a holistic review of candidate applications, using performance metrics as one component among many. This approach prioritizes a comprehensive understanding of each applicant's strengths, weaknesses, and potential to succeed at OB. It aligns with best practices in admissions by seeking to identify individuals who will not only perform well academically, but also contribute positively to the university community. This method is ethically sound, as it avoids over-reliance on potentially narrow or misleading data points, promoting fairness and equal consideration for all applicants. It also implicitly adheres to OB commitment to academic excellence and diversity by considering a wide range of attributes. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on a narrow interpretation of performance metrics, such as prioritizing only standardized test scores above all else, fails to acknowledge the multifaceted nature of academic success and personal development. This can lead to the exclusion of highly capable students who may excel in other areas or have unique backgrounds that are not captured by a single metric. Ethically, this approach risks creating an unfair selection process and may violate all commitment to diversity and inclusion. Another incorrect approach that involves adjusting performance metrics based on perceived institutional prestige of prior educational institutions, without a clear, predefined, and transparent policy, introduces subjectivity and potential bias. This can lead to discriminatory practices, where candidates from certain backgrounds are unfairly advantaged or disadvantaged. Such an approach lacks transparency and can undermine the credibility of the admissions process, potentially violating principles of equal treatment and meritocracy. A further incorrect approach that dismisses performance metrics entirely in favor of subjective impressions or personal recommendations, without a structured framework for evaluating these qualitative factors, also presents ethical and practical challenges. While qualitative assessments are important, their unbridled use can lead to arbitrary decisions and a lack of accountability. This approach risks overlooking strong candidates whose potential is evident in their measurable achievements and may not be fully conveyed through subjective means. Professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Clearly understanding and adhering to all official admissions policies and any applicable Bulgarian educational regulations. 2. Recognizing that performance metrics are indicators, not definitive judgments, and should be considered within a broader context. 3. Employing a holistic review process that evaluates academic achievements, extracurricular involvement, personal essays, letters of recommendation, and any other relevant qualitative and quantitative data. 4. Ensuring transparency and consistency in the application of evaluation criteria across all candidates. 5. Regularly reviewing and updating admissions criteria to ensure they remain relevant, fair, and aligned with the university's mission and values. Question 13. The performance metrics show a slight dip in the average scores for a particular subject area across all applicants for the American University in Bulgaria entrance exam this year. Which of the following actions best aligns with the regulatory framework and guidelines for this exam? Option A. Analyze the performance metrics in conjunction with other qualitative indicators of applicant potential and academic background, as outlined in the university's admissions policy, to understand the overall profile of the applicants and ensure a holistic evaluation. Option B. Focus on identifying applicants who scored just below the minimum threshold for a specific program and consider them for alternative, less competitive programs based on this single metric. Option C. Investigate whether the performance metrics for this subject area are comparable to those of other universities to determine if the dip is an anomaly specific to the American University in Bulgaria. Option D. Immediately flag the subject area as problematic and recommend a review of the exam's difficulty or curriculum relevance without further analysis of individual applicant profiles. The correct answer is A. Analyze the performance metrics in conjunction with other qualitative indicators of applicant potential and academic background, as outlined in the university's admissions policy, to understand the overall profile of the applicants and ensure a holistic evaluation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to interpret and apply university entrance exam guidelines to a real-world situation involving student performance data. The core difficulty lies in distinguishing between acceptable and unacceptable uses of data, particularly when it pertains to admissions decisions, and ensuring adherence to the specific regulatory framework of the American University in Bulgaria entrance exam. Careful judgment is required to avoid bias and maintain fairness in the evaluation process. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding of the American University in Bulgaria entrance exam's stated objectives and guidelines regarding the use of performance metrics. This approach prioritizes the established criteria for admission, ensuring that any interpretation of performance metrics aligns strictly with the spirit and letter of the exam's regulations. Specifically, it requires focusing on how the metrics are intended to assess academic readiness and potential as defined by the university, and how these metrics are to be used in conjunction with other qualitative factors, without introducing external or subjective interpretations that could compromise the integrity of the admissions process. The regulatory justification lies in upholding the fairness and transparency of the entrance examination, ensuring all candidates are evaluated against the same, predefined standards. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on identifying students who narrowly miss the threshold for a specific program, without considering the broader context of the exam's objectives or the university's overall admissions philosophy, fails to adhere to the comprehensive evaluation framework. This approach risks overemphasizing a single data point and potentially overlooking other crucial indicators of a candidate's suitability, thereby deviating from the holistic assessment intended by the exam. Another incorrect approach that involves seeking external benchmarks or comparing performance metrics against those of other institutions, without explicit authorization or relevance to the American University in Bulgaria entrance exams guidelines, introduces an element of external bias. This is a regulatory failure because it moves away from the specific framework established for this particular entrance exam, potentially leading to an unfair comparison and an inconsistent application of admission standards. A further incorrect approach that suggests adjusting the interpretation of performance metrics based on perceived future potential or anecdotal evidence, rather than on the objective criteria set forth in the exam regulations, represents an ethical and regulatory lapse. This introduces subjectivity and personal judgment into a process that should be governed by established, objective standards, undermining the principle of equal opportunity for all applicants. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic review of the relevant regulatory framework and guidelines for the specific examination or assessment. Professionals must first identify the stated objectives and criteria for evaluation. Then, they should analyze the available data in light of these objectives, ensuring that any interpretation or application of the data is directly supported by the established rules. If ambiguity exists, seeking clarification from the relevant governing body or exam administrators is crucial. The ultimate goal is to ensure that decisions are fair, transparent, consistent, and in full compliance with the prescribed regulations. Question 14. Investigation of an applicant's submitted academic transcript reveals a significant discrepancy between the stated GPA and the individual course grades, raising concerns about potential misrepresentation. The applicant, a prospective student for the American University in Bulgaria, has provided a document that appears to be an official transcript but lacks the expected level of detail for certain courses. What is the most appropriate course of action for the OBGA Admissions Committee? Option A. Contact the applicant's previous institution directly to inquire about the transcript without informing the applicant. Option B. Request official transcripts directly from the applicant's previous educational institution for verification. Option C. Immediately reject the applicant's application due to the suspected discrepancy. Option D. Accept the applicant's self-reported GPA as presented on the submitted document. The correct answer is B. Request official transcripts directly from the applicant's previous educational institution for verification. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The admissions committee must navigate this situation with careful judgment, ensuring that any decision upholds the university's standards while also being fair to the applicant. The core of the challenge lies in verifying the authenticity and accuracy of information provided by the applicant, especially when it pertains to academic achievements that are crucial for admission. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective verification process that respects the applicant's right to present their qualifications, while adhering strictly to the American University in Bulgaria's OBGA admissions policies and ethical guidelines. This approach prioritizes due diligence and evidence-based decision-making. Specifically, it requires the admissions committee to request official documentation from the applicant's previous institution to corroborate the claimed academic achievements. This aligns with OBGA's commitment to academic honesty and ensures that all applicants are evaluated on a level playing field based on verifiable credentials. The ethical justification stems from the principle of fairness and the university's responsibility to maintain the integrity of its admissions process. An incorrect approach would be to accept the applicant's self-reported achievements without independent verification. This fails to uphold the university's commitment to academic integrity and could lead to admitting students who have misrepresented their qualifications, thereby undermining the academic standards of all. It also creates an unfair advantage for this applicant over others who have provided verified documentation. Another incorrect approach would be to immediately reject the applicant based on suspicion, without allowing them an opportunity to provide official verification. This could be seen as an unfair judgment and a failure to follow due process, potentially violating principles of natural justice and the university's own stated procedures for handling such situations. A third incorrect approach would be to contact the applicant's previous institution directly without informing the applicant first. This could breach privacy protocols and create an adversarial relationship, hindering a potentially positive resolution. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly identify the potential issue or discrepancy. Second, consult the relevant university policies and ethical guidelines regarding admissions and academic integrity. Third, determine the most appropriate and fair method for verification, which typically involves requesting official documentation from the applicant. Fourth, communicate clearly and professionally with the applicant regarding the need for verification and the process involved. And finally, make a decision based on the verified information, ensuring it aligns with all established university standards. Question 15. The efficiency study reveals that a particular applicant's essay, while demonstrating some creativity, deviates significantly from the thematic focus outlined in the American University in Bulgaria's entrance exam guidelines. The applicant's overall academic record is strong, and there is anecdotal information suggesting they faced personal challenges during the exam period. The examination committee is considering whether to accept the essay despite the deviation, which approach best upholds the integrity of the American University in Bulgaria's entrance examination process. Option A. Allow the examination committee to collectively decide on a case-by-case basis whether to overlook thematic deviations based on their collective impression of the applicant's potential. Option B. Consider the applicant's strong academic record and personal challenges to justify accepting the essay, even with the thematic deviation, to provide a more holistic assessment. Option C. Focus primarily on the applicant's creativity and potential for future success, deeming the thematic focus a less critical component of the evaluation. Option D. Strictly adhere to the thematic focus outlined in the exam guidelines, evaluating the essay solely on its alignment with the prescribed topic and rubric, and if a deviation is significant, recommend rejection of the essay based on the guidelines. The correct answer is D. Strictly adhere to the thematic focus outlined in the exam guidelines, evaluating the essay solely on its alignment with the prescribed topic and rubric, and if a deviation is significant, recommend rejection of the essay based on the guidelines. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in academic institutions, balancing the need for objective evaluation with the potential for bias or undue influence. The university entrance exam is a critical gatekeeper, and its integrity is paramount. A professionally challenging aspect is ensuring that the evaluation process is fair, transparent, and adheres strictly to the established examination guidelines, which are designed to create a level playing field for all applicants. The pressure to admit qualified students while maintaining rigorous standards requires careful judgment. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented review process that strictly adheres to the American University in Bulgaria's stated examination regulations. This approach prioritizes objective evidence and established procedures. Specifically, it requires the examination committee to meticulously compare the applicant's submitted work against the predefined scoring rubric and the specific requirements outlined in the exam guidelines. Any deviations or perceived anomalies must be investigated through the established appeals process, which is also detailed within the university's academic regulations. This ensures that decisions are based on merit and adherence to the rules, thereby upholding the fairness and credibility of the entrance examination. This aligns with the ethical obligation to treat all applicants equitably and the regulatory requirement to follow established institutional procedures for admissions. An incorrect approach would be to allow subjective impressions or anecdotal evidence to influence the evaluation. For instance, if an applicant is known to the admissions committee or has a compelling personal story, and this information is used to override objective assessment criteria, it represents a failure to adhere to the principle of merit-based evaluation. This violates the spirit of fair competition and could lead to accusations of favoritism, undermining the integrity of the examination process. Another incorrect approach would be to disregard the established appeals process for challenging evaluation outcomes. Failing to provide a mechanism for applicants to seek review of their scores, or not following the outlined steps for such reviews, is a direct contravention of procedural fairness and institutional guidelines. This can lead to legal challenges and damage the university's reputation. Professionals in academic admissions should employ a decision-making framework that emphasizes adherence to established policies and procedures, objective evidence, and procedural fairness. This involves 1. Clearly understanding and applying all relevant university regulations and examination guidelines. 2. Relying solely on documented evidence and predefined criteria for evaluation. 3. Ensuring transparency and consistency in the application of rules. 4. Utilizing established channels for addressing discrepancies or appeals. 5. Maintaining a commitment to impartiality and avoiding personal biases or external pressures. Question 16. Compliance review shows an anonymous tip has been received alleging that an applicant to the American University in Bulgaria may have received preferential treatment during the admissions process due to a personal connection with a faculty member. The admissions committee has already made its final decision on this applicant. What is the most appropriate next step for the university administration to ensure the integrity of the admissions process? Option A. Disregard the anonymous tip as it lacks concrete evidence and could be malicious. Option B. Initiate a formal, objective review of the applicant's file and the admissions committee's decision-making process by an independent internal body. Option C. Immediately revoke the applicant's admission offer based on the unsubstantiated allegation. Option D. Contact the applicant directly to question them about the anonymous tip before any internal investigation. The correct answer is B. Initiate a formal, objective review of the applicant's file and the admissions committee's decision-making process by an independent internal body. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in academic institutions where the integrity of the admissions process is paramount. The professional challenge lies in balancing the university's commitment to fair and transparent admissions with the need to address potential irregularities without causing undue harm or creating a perception of bias. The admissions committee must exercise careful judgment to ensure that any review process is conducted ethically, adheres to established university policies, and upholds the principles of equal opportunity for all applicants. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves initiating a formal, objective review of the applicant's file and the admissions committee's decision-making process. This approach is right because it directly addresses the concern raised by the anonymous tip by seeking factual evidence. It aligns with best professional practices by ensuring that all decisions are based on merit and established criteria, not on unsubstantiated allegations or personal biases. This process upholds the university's commitment to fairness and due process for all applicants. It also demonstrates a commitment to maintaining the integrity of the admissions process, which is a core ethical responsibility for any academic institution. The review should be conducted by an impartial body or individuals not directly involved in the initial decision, ensuring objectivity. Incorrect approaches analysis. Ignoring the anonymous tip is professionally unacceptable because it demonstrates a disregard for potential irregularities and a failure to uphold the university's commitment to a fair admissions process. This inaction could lead to a compromised admissions cycle and damage the university's reputation. Immediately rejecting the applicant based solely on an anonymous tip without any corroborating evidence is also professionally unsound. This approach violates the principles of due process and fairness, as it punishes an applicant based on an unsubstantiated accusation. It can lead to legal challenges and erodes trust in the admissions system. Contacting the applicant directly to inquire about the anonymous tip before conducting any internal review is premature and potentially damaging. This could alert the applicant to a potential issue, allowing them to manipulate the situation or creating an unfair advantage or disadvantage depending on the nature of the tip. It also bypasses the established internal procedures for handling such concerns. Professional reasoning. Professionals in academic admissions should adopt a systematic and evidence-based approach when faced with concerns about the integrity of the admissions process. The decision-making framework should prioritize 1. Acknowledging and documenting all concerns, regardless of their source. 2. Initiating an objective and impartial internal review to gather facts and assess the validity of the concern. 3. Adhering strictly to established university policies and procedures for admissions and grievance handling. 4. Ensuring confidentiality and fairness throughout the review process. 5. Making decisions based on evidence and established criteria, not on speculation or rumor. 6. Communicating findings and decisions through appropriate channels. Maintaining transparency, where possible, without compromising individual privacy. Question 17. When evaluating the potential impact of a new student admissions policy for the American university in Bulgaria, which of the following approaches best demonstrates an understanding of the university's stated commitment to academic integrity and equitable opportunity, as outlined in its hypothetical admissions guidelines? Option A. Prioritizing applicants based on their perceived social connections and potential for future alumni donations. Option B. Conducting a thorough review of the policy's alignment with the university's mission statement and assessing its potential to foster a diverse and academically capable student body, while also considering any potential unintended consequences on equitable access. Option C. Focusing exclusively on the policy's potential to increase the university's ranking in international league tables, regardless of its impact on individual applicants. Option D. Implementing the policy immediately based on the personal recommendations of a few senior faculty members, without further scrutiny. Correct answer is A. Prioritizing applicants based on their perceived social connections and potential for future alumni donations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate not only a foundational understanding of academic principles relevant to university-level study, but also the ability to critically assess information and apply ethical reasoning within a specific, albeit hypothetical, regulatory context. The American University in Bulgaria entrance exam aims to gauge these abilities, ensuring candidates can engage with complex ideas and make sound judgments. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between valid and invalid claims, and to understand the implications of adhering to or deviating from established guidelines, even in a simulated environment. The correct approach involves critically evaluating the provided information against the stated, hypothetical, regulatory framework for the exam, identifying inconsistencies or unsupported assertions, and prioritizing the most reliable and relevant evidence. This aligns with best professional practice by emphasizing evidence-based reasoning and adherence to established standards. Specifically, it reflects the ethical obligation to be truthful and accurate in one's assessments, and to avoid making unsubstantiated claims, which is a cornerstone of academic and professional integrity. An incorrect approach that relies solely on anecdotal evidence or personal opinion fails to meet the standards of objective evaluation expected in an academic setting. It disregards the importance of verifiable facts and established procedures, potentially leading to flawed conclusions. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes superficial similarities without deep analysis overlooks the nuances of the situation and the specific requirements of the task, demonstrating a lack of critical thinking. Finally, an approach that dismisses the provided regulatory framework entirely, treating it as irrelevant, demonstrates a fundamental misunderstanding of the importance of context and established rules in professional and academic endeavors. Such a failure would be a direct contravention of the implicit expectation to engage with and respect the parameters set for the evaluation. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a systematic approach. First, thoroughly understanding the objectives and constraints of the task, including any relevant guidelines or regulations. Second, critically analyzing all available information, distinguishing between factual evidence and subjective interpretations. Third, evaluating potential courses of action or conclusions based on their alignment with established principles and evidence. Finally, articulating the reasoning clearly and justifying the chosen approach with reference to the relevant framework. Question 18. Cost-benefit analysis shows that a lucrative sponsorship opportunity from a company with a questionable environmental record could significantly boost the university's operating budget. However, this partnership might conflict with OBG's stated commitment to sustainability and could lead to student protests. Which course of action best aligns with the principles of responsible institutional management and ethical conduct for the American University in Bulgaria? Option A. Negotiate a sponsorship agreement that focuses solely on the financial benefits, with no specific clauses or discussions regarding the company's environmental practices or the university's sustainability goals. Option B. Reject the sponsorship outright due to the company's current environmental record, prioritizing the university's reputation and avoiding any potential controversy. Option C. Accept the sponsorship immediately to secure the much-needed funds, with the intention of addressing any reputational concerns later if they arise. Option D. Accept the sponsorship after a thorough review of the company's environmental practices and a public commitment from the company to improve its sustainability efforts, while also launching a parallel university initiative to enhance its own sustainability programs. The correct answer is D. Accept the sponsorship after a thorough review of the company's environmental practices and a public commitment from the company to improve its sustainability efforts, while also launching a parallel university initiative to enhance its own sustainability programs. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate financial benefits of a proposed project against potential long-term reputational damage and ethical considerations, all within the context of the American University in Bulgaria's OB commitment to academic integrity and responsible community engagement. The decision-maker must navigate the university's internal policies and its broader ethical obligations as an educational institution. The correct approach involves prioritizing the university's core values and long-term reputation over short-term financial gains. This means conducting a thorough due diligence process that extends beyond mere financial viability. It requires assessing the potential partner's ethical standing, their alignment with OB's mission, and the potential impact on the student body and the wider community. This approach is justified by OB's implicit commitment to upholding high ethical standards in all its operations and partnerships, as is expected of any reputable academic institution. Such a commitment is often codified in university mission statements, codes of conduct, and policies regarding partnerships and sponsorships, which emphasize integrity, transparency, and social responsibility. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on the financial benefits without adequately considering the ethical implications. This could lead to partnering with an entity whose practices or reputation are at odds with OB values, potentially resulting in public criticism, damage to the university's brand, and a negative impact on student recruitment and alumni relations. Another incorrect approach would be to proceed with the partnership based on a superficial understanding of the partner's operations, neglecting to investigate potential controversies or ethical concerns. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to uphold the professional responsibility to protect the university's integrity. A third incorrect approach would be to dismiss the concerns raised by stakeholders without proper investigation, prioritizing expediency over thoroughness, and potentially alienating important members of the university community. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a multi-stakeholder consultation, a comprehensive risk assessment that includes ethical and reputational factors, and a clear adherence to established university policies and ethical guidelines. It requires a proactive approach to identifying potential issues and a commitment to making decisions that align with the long-term interests and values of the institution. Question 19. Analysis of a situation where an admissions officer at the American University in Bulgaria has a close personal relationship with the parent of an applicant. The applicant's academic record is strong but not exceptional, and the admissions officer is aware of the applicant's potential to meet the university's standards. The admissions officer is tasked with reviewing this application as part of a larger batch. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions officer to ensure the integrity and fairness of the admissions process, strictly adhering to the American University in Bulgaria's entrance exam regulatory framework and guidelines? Option A. Reject the applicant outright without a thorough review of their academic qualifications, to preemptively avoid any appearance of impropriety or bias. Option B. Proceed with a standard, objective review of the applicant's file, documenting all findings and decisions, and discreetly informing the admissions committee of the personal connection to ensure transparency and allow for oversight. Option C. Admit the applicant immediately due to the personal connection, assuming the applicant meets the minimum requirements, to avoid any potential awkwardness or perceived slight to the parent. Option D. Delay the review of this specific application indefinitely, until the personal connection is no longer a factor, without informing the applicant or the admissions committee. The correct answer is B. Proceed with a standard, objective review of the applicant's file, documenting all findings and decisions, and discreetly informing the admissions committee of the personal connection to ensure transparency and allow for oversight. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in academic admissions, requiring a nuanced understanding of fairness, transparency, and adherence to institutional policies. The professional challenge lies in balancing the desire to admit promising students with the need to maintain a consistent and equitable admissions process, avoiding any perception of bias or preferential treatment. Careful judgment is required to ensure that all applicants are evaluated based on the same criteria, and that any deviations are justifiable and documented according to established guidelines. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the applicant's file against the stated admissions criteria, seeking clarification from the admissions committee regarding any ambiguities, and documenting the decision-making process. This aligns with best practices in academic admissions, emphasizing meritocracy and adherence to institutional regulations. Specifically, it upholds the principle of equal opportunity by ensuring that all applicants are assessed using the same objective standards. Furthermore, it promotes transparency and accountability by requiring clear documentation of any decisions, especially those that might appear to deviate from the norm. This approach is ethically sound as it prioritizes fairness and integrity in the admissions process. An incorrect approach would be to unilaterally admit the applicant based on a personal connection without a formal review. This violates the principle of equal treatment and could be perceived as favoritism, undermining the credibility of the admissions process. It also bypasses established procedures, potentially leading to inconsistencies and a lack of accountability. Another incorrect approach would be to reject the applicant solely based on the personal connection, fearing a conflict of interest, without a proper evaluation of their qualifications against the admissions criteria. This is also professionally unsound, as it fails to assess the applicant on their merits and may unfairly disadvantage a qualified candidate. It demonstrates a lack of confidence in the established review process and an inability to manage potential conflicts of interest appropriately. A further incorrect approach would be to delay the decision indefinitely without communicating with the applicant or the admissions committee. This demonstrates a failure to act decisively and professionally, creating uncertainty for the applicant and potentially hindering the admissions committee's work. It also suggests an avoidance of responsibility rather than a proactive engagement with the situation. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Understanding and strictly adhering to the American University in Bulgaria's admissions policies and guidelines. 2. Objectively evaluating the applicant's qualifications against the established criteria. 3. Identifying and disclosing any potential conflicts of interest to the appropriate authorities, e.g., admissions committee supervisor. 4. Seeking guidance and clarification from the admissions committee or relevant university officials when faced with ambiguity or unusual circumstances. 5. Documenting all steps taken and decisions made throughout the process to ensure transparency and accountability. Question 20. The performance metrics show an unusually consistent pattern of correct answers across a broad range of question types for a particular applicant, deviating significantly from typical applicant performance distributions. According to the American University in Bulgaria's entrance exam guidelines, what is the most appropriate initial step to address this observation? Option A. Initiate a formal review of the applicant's performance metrics against the established guidelines for identifying potential irregularities, seeking clarification on any anomalies. Option B. Immediately disqualify the applicant from further consideration due to the statistically improbable nature of their performance. Option C. Discuss the applicant's unusual performance metrics with admissions committee members not directly involved in the final decision to gauge their opinions. Option D. Overlook the performance metrics, assuming they represent an exceptional but legitimate applicant. The correct answer is A. Initiate a formal review of the applicant's performance metrics against the established guidelines for identifying potential irregularities, seeking clarification on any anomalies. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to interpret and apply university entrance exam regulations to a situation involving potential academic misconduct. The core of the challenge lies in balancing the need for fairness to all applicants with the imperative to uphold the integrity of the examination process as defined by the American University in Bulgaria's entrance exam guidelines. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any action taken is consistent with the established rules and promotes a just outcome. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the specific performance metrics in light of the American University in Bulgaria's entrance exam regulations concerning unusual patterns or potential irregularities. This approach is correct because it directly addresses the observed data by seeking to understand if it constitutes a violation of the established examination framework. The regulatory justification lies in the university's right and responsibility to maintain the validity and fairness of its entrance examinations. By investigating the metrics against the specific rules, the individual acts in accordance with the principle of academic integrity, which is paramount in any educational institution's admissions process. This methodical examination ensures that decisions are evidence-based and adhere to the stated guidelines, preventing arbitrary judgments. An incorrect approach would be to immediately dismiss the applicant based solely on the observed performance metrics without further investigation. This is ethically and regulatorily flawed because it presumes guilt without due process. The entrance exam regulations likely outline specific procedures for handling suspected irregularities, and bypassing these procedures violates the principle of fairness. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the performance metrics altogether, assuming they are inconsequential. This is also problematic as it abdicates the responsibility to ensure the integrity of the examination process. The university has established these metrics for a reason, and failing to consider them when they indicate potential issues undermines the credibility of the admissions process. Finally, an approach that involves discussing the specific applicant's performance metrics with other individuals not directly involved in the admissions decision-making process would be a breach of confidentiality and a violation of ethical standards regarding applicant data. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly identify the observed data or situation. Second, consult the relevant regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines specific to the American University in Bulgaria's entrance exam. Third, analyze the observed data in direct comparison to these established rules. Fourth, if an irregularity is indicated, follow the prescribed procedures for investigation and adjudication. Fifth, ensure all actions are documented and that the applicant is treated fairly and with due process. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, defensible, and aligned with the institution's commitment to academic integrity and fairness.